Assalamu alaikum. Welcome you to the general anatomy lecture. This is my second lecture of nervous system, and this is the last lecture of nervous system. We were discussing about subdivisions of nervous system. We have discussed about peripheral nervous system, in which we have discussed about sensory division, motor division in detail, and sensory division in detail. In this lecture, we will discuss about visual motor division that constitute autonomic nervous system. Before doing autonomic nervous system, we will discuss about some major regions of the brain. Second part of the central nervous system is the spinal cord that has that extends from the medulla oblongata to the region of thoracic 12th T12 and or L1 and it has got eight cervical segments and has got 12 thoracic segments. Then it has got lumbar and spinal segments. Now we come to the autonomic nervous system. Autonomic nervous system consists of motor neurons that innervate smooth muscles and cardiac muscles, and glands make adjustments to ensure optimal support for the body activities and operate via subconscious control. Autonomic nervous system is also known as involuntary nervous system or general visual motor system. We are discussing this autonomic nervous system that is subdivided into sympathetic and parasympathetic division. Somatic and autonomic nervous systems, how they differ with one another. They differ in three respects. One is the difference in the effector, then effector pathways, then target organ responses to neurotransmitters. This is the differences, how they differentiate from one another. Here you can see this is the somatic nervous system. Its effector organs are the skeletal muscles, while in autonomic nervous system the effector organs are cardiac muscles, smooth muscles of the body, then glands of whole of the body. This is the difference. This all is the autonomic nervous system that is labeled on the left side in yellow. This is the autonomic nervous system, and above the autonomic nervous system there is somatic nervous system. Then the second difference is in the effector pathways. The somatic nervous system are thick, heavily myelinated. Here you can see thick, heavily myelinated somatic motor fiber make up each pathway from CNS to the muscle. Here you can see a single neuron that is highly myelinated. It extends from the central nervous system to the muscle. While in ANS, the preganglionic neuron, here you can see sympathetic and sympathetic and parasympathetic both consist of preganglionic neurons, has a thin, lightly myelinated preganglionic axon. while ganglionic neuron in autonomic ganglion has an unmyelinated postganglionic axon that extends to the effector organ. Both the preganglionic is slightly myelinated and postganglionic is unmyelinated. And the third difference is the difference in the presence of the neurotransmitters. Here you can see in case of somatic nervous system, the neurotransmitter is acetylcholine and it is always stimulatory, while in autonomic nervous system, in case of sympathetic, there is norepinephrine, while in parasympathetic, the neurotransmitter is acetylcholine. Effect is either stimulatory or inhibitory depending upon the type of the receptor. These are the major differences. Then we come to the division of the autonomic nervous system that includes sympathetic and parasympathetic. And many organs of the body have both innervations. How autonomic functioning take place? Basically, this is a fight and flight mechanism, and that is the sympathetic functioning. It is the response to unusual stimuli, take over to increase activities. It includes exercise, excitement, emergency, and embarrassment. In all these situations, this sympathetic system activates. Then, how the parasympathetic functioning controls. The parasympathetic functions as housekeeping because it conserves energy, maintain daily necessary body functions, and it functions in digestion, defecation, and diuresis. Basically, sympathetic division mobilizes the body during activity of fight and flight and promote adjustment during exercise or when threatened. It basically controls the blood flow to skeletal muscles and heart. Bronchioles dilate and liver releases glucose. While in case of parasympathetic functioning, it promotes maintenance and conserve body energy. It basically illustrates a person who relaxes, do some reading after a meal. Blood pressure. In this case, blood pressure, heart rate, and respiratory rates are low. GIT activity is high. Pupils are constricted, and lenses are accommodated for close vision. The sympathetic This is the sympathetic and parasympathetic regions. This is sympathetic trunk and pathways. There are 23 paravertebral ganglia in the sympathetic trunk. 3 are cervical, 11 are thoracic, 4 are lumbar, 4 sacral, and 1 coccygeal. These ganglia are the sympathetic ganglia. While sympathetic ganglia or thoracolumbar region, they are preganglionic. The preganglion neurons are in spinal cord segments T1 to L2. Sympathetic neuron produce the lateral horns in the spinal cord. Preganglionic fibers pass through the white rami communicans and enter sympathetic trunk ganglia. Sympathetic trunk and pathways. Upon entering the sympathetic ganglia, the preganglionic fibers may do one of the following. They synapse with the ganglionic neuron within the same ganglion. The synapse is in the same ganglion where the preganglionic fibers come. The second type, it may ascend or descend in the sympathetic trunk to synapse in another trunk ganglion. Here you can see the fibers are descending. The third type, the preganglionic fibers may pass through the trunk ganglion and emerge without synapsing. In this case, it is going through the ganglion without synapsing and synapse in the distant collateral ganglion anterior to the vertebral column. In case of head and neck region, there are 4 parasympathetic ganglion that control the flow of the impulses. They are ciliary ganglion, pterygopalatine ganglion, they are the submandibular ganglion and the otic ganglion. Here are some interactions of the autonomic nervous system. Most visceral organs have dual innervation. Dynamic antagonism allow a precise control of visual activity. Like sympathetic division increases heart rate and respiratory rate and also inhibits digestion and elimination, while parasympathetic division decreases heart and respiratory rates. It allows digestion and discarding of wastes. There are some unique roles of the sympathetic nervous system, like the adrenomedulla, sweat glands, erector pili muscles, kidneys, and most of the blood vessels receives only sympathetic fibers. The sympathetic division control thermoregulatory responses to heat, release of renin, and this is renin basically secreted by the juxtaglomerular cells of the kidney. And then metabolic effects include increased metabolic rates of the cells, raises blood glucose levels, mobilizes fat for use as fuels. Localized versus diffused effects. Parasympathetic division is shortly lived. The effects of the parasympathetic division are short lived. They are highly localized, control over the effectors, while sympathetic division effects long lasting. Its effects are long lasting and body wide effect. They are not localized to a single organ. Control of functioning of ANS. Basically, hypothalamus is the main integrative center of the autonomic nervous system. Subconscious cerebral input via limbic lobe connection influences the hypothalamic function. Other control comes from the cerebral cortex, the reticular formation, and the spinal cord. Here is a schematic diagram of the control of autonomic nervous system. Here you can see there is a two-way activation and inhibition from the cerebral cortex to the limbic system, and limbic system it may activate or repress the hypothalamus, that in turn activates the ANS, while it stimulates or downregulates the brainstem, and finally the spinal cord. By this we come to the end of our nervous system, and this was my last lecture of general anatomy. Thank you so much for your attention.